What's good, my lovely peoples? It's your main man Solace here, the humble servant of the life. Today I want to do this video called the scapegoat. Very important video. Now, we've all heard the terminology or the slogan, the scapegoat. And for the most part, we all know that it basically means someone getting blame placed on them for something someone else did. So let's say I killed a man, and then I make another person take blame for it, using them as the scapegoat. So this is what the scapegoat pretty much means. Now, this whole slogan or terminology, the scapegoat, derived from ancient times when men used to sacrifice innocent goats for their sins. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. A goat was sacrificed because a man sinned, making that goat the scapegoat. Now let me break down something very interesting about sin to y'all. Sin, we don't use that word in today's times unless we're talking about religious text. Other than that, we don't use it in our day-to-day vocabulary. Now, in ancient times, the word sin was used in their day-to-day vocabulary. The word sin is basically the equivalent to our word illegal. So you have to understand, every land has a king or a ruler over it. And every land has laws. Today times, if a man breaks the laws, it's called an illegal act. In the past, if a man broke the laws, it was called committing a sin. So you have to grasp, this had nothing to do with the God thing y'all speak of. Even when reading the book, has nothing to do with it. Has to do with the laws of the land that were made by the king or the ruler. And if those laws were broke or transgressed, this was called the sin. Now, what sin is like guilt. If a man commit a sin, he has a guilt. Now, according to the laws of the land by the king, which would have been called a god in ancient times, what you would do if you broke the law was bring one of your best sheep, goats. Eventually, you got down to any animal. Whatever animal you had without blemish, you bring that to the king or the god, place it on the altar, and you basically feed the god or the king of the land. You basically give him your best. And this is how you was rid of your sin. But here's the interesting thing, because look how deep it is. Men went from breaking the laws, doing sin, killing innocent goats for their bad deeds, placing the blame on the goat. But then bust how when Jesus came into the picture, according to the text, Jesus is symbolical. I'm so sorry. Jesus is symbolical, if I said that right. I'm getting tongue-tied. But Jesus is like a symbol for the transfer from men sacrificing animals to men sacrificing each other. Meaning, men sacrificed scapegoats. Animals were their scape. They committed sins. They killed innocent animals to rid them of that. Once Jesus was killed in the same way as the goat, meaning he was innocent, he didn't do anything. He was killed because of the sins and guilt of others, just like the goat. And from that day forth, no more animals was brought to the altar and sacrificed for sin. From that day forth, men began to put their blame on one another, making each other the scapegoats. So grasp how deep that is. See, when people read the text, they don't understand because they don't read right. The book is not telling you that God made any laws. First thing you have to grasp is God's is what the ruler of the land was called. Lords would have been those under him. So the way we have president, then the government under the president, or however the system works, same thing of the past, except they had their wording. Then at a point in time, they had emperors and kings. That was their wordings. So on and so forth. To now where you have presidents and shit like that. But if you go way, way back in the ancient times, ruler of the land would have been the god. So you have to understand when you're reading that book, this is why every land had their own god. Think about it. Every land had their own god. Sodom and Gomorrah had their own god, if they even had one. The Philistines, they had their own god. They lived on their own land. Abraham had his own god. He nomadically moved throughout other people's land. The Egyptians had their own gods. They lived in their land. So you have to grasp, the gods were the ancient, mighty rulers of the past. Men. And that's why every land had different gods. And this is why when they went to war, they did it in the name of their god or the ruler of their land. So it's a deep thing y'all have to grasp. Sin simply meant a man did an illegal act. So you have to understand what y'all read. When you get to the part of Jesus and it says he died for the sins of men, it is not saying he died for your sins and you're washed clean of them. It is saying just like the scapegoat was killed for the sins of men for no goddamn reason, so was Jesus. Killed for the sins of those who killed him. Just like the scapegoat was killed for the sins of whoever killed him. You do a sin, you kill a goat. Motherfuckers was sinning, doing wrong, so they killed Jesus because he was innocent. Innocence is not welcomed amongst the unclean. Gangsters don't like good motherfuckers around them. So you have to understand that. Become a scapegoat. So this is what the Bible is saying. It is not saying Jesus died for your sins. You cannot be ignorant. You know that if a man did a crime in the past, killed a man, and then he sacrificed a goat, you know in your heart he is not rid of that crime. It is just the law of that land that rids him of that. But the universe and the mighty all, he is not rid of that. He has to face that still in his fate. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. Now you run around sinning and you believe Jesus died for my sins. Yet you should know in your heart, if you have any goodness, that an innocent man dying will never clean up your dirt. That's why it's important that people pay attention to what they do. Because whatever you do in this life, the only way that you can fix it is to undo it. Meaning you can't sacrifice somebody to clean up your guilt or your sin. You have to undo that guilt. If you hurt a person, you have to make them feel good. If you stole from a person, you have to give unto them. And this is why it's important that you watch the things you do. Because the things in the life you can't undo, you're stained with it for eternity. Meaning, if you kill a man, you cannot undo that. You must wear that stain on your spirit for eternity. Grasp how deep that is. You can sacrifice all the goats and sheeps you want. That holds no reverence in the universal laws. Because those were laws that gods and kings made for men to feel better about their atrocities that they do. And in their bad deeds, the king gets a free fucking goat. So you have to grasp how deep that is. You can't worship something that's simple-minded. You got to worship the mighty all. You got to understand things. You got to understand the difference between what a man law sounds like and what the mighty all law will sound like. Because the mighty all don't give law. It give brain and it give action and reaction. So whatever you do has a reaction. And this is how the life balances itself out. Nobody walking around guarding over nobody. We gotta grasp. They sacrificed innocent life in the past, which was the animals, for their sins. You know that makes no sense. That is not of the life. That is what men made up. You come to Jesus' times, they sacrificed him. And from that day forth, you see men all around you now no longer sacrificing animals, only each other. Meaning, we use one another as scapegoats, no longer the animals. Grasp how deep that is. Shemaim and Solace.